I'm Bable Jonathan, and this is the 6 p.m. primetime newscast on Equinox Television, live from our headquarters in Cameroon's economic capital, Douala. In this edition of the news, we're going to talk about the national president of the Cameroon Renaissance Movement, CRM, political party, incarcerated Professor Maurice Kamto, has urged militants and supporters as well as sympathizers of the party to remain strong and determined as government cracks down on the party with regards to its activities in line with the fight against electoral hold-up in the country, as well as the deepening Anglophone crisis and even the illegal exploitation of the country's resources. And the network of African female leaders expresses concerns over the deepening Anglophone crisis and the socio-political tensions hitting the Republic of Cameroon. Members of that network are in Cameroon on a fact-finding mission. Those were our top stories. Incarcerated national president of the Cameroon Renaissance Movement, CRM political party, Professor Maurice Kamto, writes to militant sympathizers and supporters of the party from his Kondingi maximum security prison in the nation's political capital, Yaoundé, urging them to remain firm and determined to achieve their results, that is, putting an end to electoral hold-up and, of course, the deepening socio-political and security crisis hitting the northwest and southwest regions of the country, and also the illegal and unlawful exploitation of the country's resources by a clique of individuals. This information is contained in a letter written by the political leader who is being detained in the nation's capital, Yaoundé, and we have details on this with Smart Jikangebre.
Since his arrest on January 28, 2019 in Douala, after a peaceful protest march in some parts of Cameroon, Cameroon Renaissance Movement CRM party's president, Professor Maurice Kamto, writes to his followers from the Yaoundé principal prison. In a 3-page letter written on April 14, 2019, Professor Maurice Kamto began by expressing the desire to talk to everyone involved in this dilemma they are going through as a result of Biya's regime. According to Professor Maurice Kamto, the arbitrary arrests imposed on them by Biya's regime was because of their determination and in an attempt of exercising their rights. Professor Maurice Kamto in the letter said it was with pains that he received the news of how his militants from Bafang, Chang, Bafoussam, Yaoundé and Douala were tortured and humiliated by the security forces of the Biya's regime. Concerning the destruction at the embassies of Paris and Berlin, Professor Maurice Kamto again stated categorically that the destruction had nothing to do with the Cameroon Renaissance Movement Party. Professor Maurice Kamto stated that through his lawyers he has sent a message to the President of the Republic, Mr. Paul Biya, about his desire for them to meet and talk on the October 7, 2018 presidential elections. Apart from that, the letter of Professor Maurice Kamto also talked about the Anglophone crisis, where he suggested his own ideas on how to put to an end the crisis in the northwest and southwest regions. Professor Maurice Kamto brought forth 4 different points on how the crisis in the northwest and southwest region could be resolved. The putting in place of a disarmament, demobilization and reintegration committee to be created for a ceasefire to be achieved. He also asked for the liberation of all of those imprisoned. The putting in place of a Truth, Justice and Reconciliation Commission and the organization of an inclusive dialogue to put to an end the civil war in the Anglophone regions of Cameroon. Professor Maurice Kamto, however, told his militants to remain peaceful, as if courthouses in Cameroon decide to rule otherwise, the case will be judged at the international level.
The 2011 Nobel Peace Prize winner Lema Mbowe and other members of the African Network of Female Leaders, or the Network of African Female Leaders, have expressed concerns over the socio-political and security tensions in Cameroon, notably in the northwest and southwest regions of the country. They are in Cameroon on a fact-finding mission, and they met with the national coordinator of the Cameroon chapter of the African Women Leaders Network, 16th who doubles as Minister of Housing and Urban Development of Cameroon. Greater details in the upcoming extracts of Lema Mbowe, 2011 Nobel Peace Prize winner and the national coordinator of the Cameroon chapter of the African Female Leaders Network, 16th who doubles as Minister of Housing and Urban Development.
A lot of sit-downs since we came, and we'll continue our sit-down here in Yaoundé, talking to people. You can't walk into someone's home and say, I've brought you water. You have to ask them, what is the need here? And that is the purpose of that advocacy. We want to know, how can we help? What can we do? And what can we take out there to the world to say, this is what is obtaining in Cameroon, and this is what the women need. Our mission is threefold. One is a solidarity mission to our fellow sister, Madam Minister, who is the national coordinator of the African Women's Leaders Network Cameroon chapter. So it's basically coming to see how her national network is going on. They are preparing to launch it, what is happening, and how we can be of support to her. The second part is looking at the UN Security Council Resolution 1325, where Cameroon has instituted its national action plan. We want to come and see how far it is, how women are faring in this. And the last stage is a peace exploratory mission. We're all about peace. So how can we work with the women of Cameroon? We know that the government has a national humanitarian plan. How can we, and the UN also has a national humanitarian plan, go out there, do advocacy in the interest especially of the women of Cameroon?
One of the mission was also, how can we do to capacitate women to be in a position to advocate for peace, to support peace in our African country. Because if there is no peace, we can't be here and have opportunities to meet our peace prize of 2011. We can have time to meet together and to build our country. And I'm very happy to know that this network, where I'm one of the founder members, is here in my country, in our country, in Africa, to support the head of state on how to sustain peace in Cameroon.
A consignment of illegal drugs imported into the Republic of Cameroon from neighboring Nigeria has been seized by security forces here in the country's economic capital, Douala, and the drugs were seized thanks to the collaboration between the Customs Department and the Cameroonian Navy. Innocent has more.
151,000 packs of tramadol intercepted in Cameroon by custom officials. This large consignment of illicit drugs was fraudulently brought into Cameroon by contrabandists who have been surprised by Zone 1 custom personnel fighting against contraband products.
Des personnes qui sont déterminées à faire entrer ces produits.
The custom commander, Philemon Amogu Owana, coordinating Zone 1, says the contrabandists will be presented to the state prosecutor for justice to take its course. The operation, initiated by the custom personnel on April 14 in Akwa Douala, has equally permitted the seizure of 172,800 packs of Combiat, an anti-malaria drug, including 24,000 packs of amclozine capsule, an antibiotic. These illicit drugs from a neighboring country were already being distributed in some stores before reaching Douala. In its cooperation with the Cameroonian Marine, the custom also intercepted this boat on the Wuri River, transporting 7,000 liters of contraband fuel.
Une patrouille de routine de la Marine nationale.
Captain Hugh Syriac Kweche says the boat was intercepted around Daido.
Environ de Daido. Une embarcation artisanale.
Culprits escaped, abandoning their consignments, which were evacuated to the Douala naval base. The fuel, he adds, has been put at the disposal of the regional delegation of water and energy resources.
Les autres éléments saisis seront confisqués comme réglementairement.
Tramadol is noted as major accelerator of youth into juvenile delinquency in society. This interception is thus welcomed as good news.
In the report coming up next, we're going to be talking about the problem of inadequate or no energy supply, electric energy supply in several parts of the Republic of Cameroon, from the big cities into the hinterlands or the remote areas. Inhabitants are facing this problem, which is causing enormous loss, especially to business persons. A case in point in this newscast is the locality of Bankim in the west region of the country.
Inhabitants of Bankim in the Nun division, west region of Cameroon, only depend on standby generators to light their homes, business premises and perform other activities that warrant electric energy supply. Electric energy supply is epileptic and the people sometimes go for several months without electricity.
Since 2 months that we don't have light here in Bankim. We are suffering. We are only charging phone with generators. We don't have enough thing to charge phone again.
In some cases, energy supply is reinstated at night and switched off during the day, creating a counter-performance effect on their electronic appliances. Inhabitants capable of owning a standby generator go about their activities normally, though transferring the increased costs of using a standby generator to customers.
Charge the phone when there's no light. Like 20 food in the day, 200.
With a considerable fall in the profit margin as a result of using alternative means of energy supply, the increase in the costs of goods and services rendered with the use of electricity, the people are calling on municipal and administrative officials to facilitate electric energy supply in Bankim. The problem with electricity supply in Bankim and Magba is a shattered dream to inhabitants who thought that the construction of the Mape hydroelectric dam was going to be a turning point to years of energy supply problems in their locality. Upon construction, the Mape hydroelectric dam was equipped with 3 generators to supply energy across the Nun division right up to Magba and Bankim. Today, only one is functional and unable to supply electricity to the concerned communities. Officials of the energy supply and distribution company say they find it hard to constantly operate the loon generator because of lack of fuel, which is supposed to be supplied by the government of Cameroon.
Students and pupils have gone back to school for the 3rd and last term of the current academic year, but those of Zina International School here in the economic capital of the country, Douala, have not been able to go to school since the start of the 3rd term of the current academic year, and this is because the school has been sealed as a result of problems linked to the payment of taxes. Details in this report by Immaculate Fogwe.
The Easter break across the national territory is over, and now students are expected to confront the shortest term of the 2018-2019 academic year. Classes are effective in most private and government institutions, but for these private institutions known as like Zina International, found in Benauda in Douala, their doors remain shut. The sealing of the school, sources say, is as a result of unpaid taxes.
Non, j'ai eu un de mes petits frères en passant là.
One of my brothers, who was walking along the street on Friday, came home and told me that the door has been sealed because the school is unable to pay their tax. I thought it was a joke. It was later today that I came with my kids that I noticed that the seal has not yet been removed. No explanation has been given by the proprietor nor the teachers. We are just confused. This other parent explains, my children are schooling here. I am a bike rider who is working day and night so that my kids can go to school and have a good future. How can I pay the school fees of my children? And later, I am being told that the school has been sealed. What will I do now? All I want is that the school should be unsealed so my children can finish their academic year. The building in which the school operates is a rented one, and the owner is equally complaining that the proprietor is owing months of unpaid rents. The solution brought up by the school authorities is that the pupils will be transferred to one of their branches in Deido, as this parent explains. We have been asked to bring our kids in front of the school and that a bus will come pick them up at 9 a.m. and take them to Zina International, a branch located in Deido. A solution which these parents see as intolerable because the building in Deido is quite small to contain all of the students. As these peoples await that the school should be unsealed, some of them are now experiencing an involuntary prolonged Easter break as they await for something to be done fast.
Out of Cameroon, more than 40 families in northern Ethiopia have just been told that their relatives drowned earlier this month at sea while traveling from Djibouti to Yemen. Officials in Ethiopia's Tigray region see more than 60 youths set off on foot last month to Djibouti in search for work in Saudi Arabia, and the boat got into trouble before it had reached Yemen. Accidents between the Horn of Africa coast and Yemen are common. In February, 57 Ethiopians died when two boats capsized shortly after setting off from Djibouti. And now in France, hundreds of millions of euros have been pledged to help rebuild Notre Dame after a devastating fire partially destroyed the cathedral in the French capital city, Paris, and the fire was declared fully extinguished some 15 hours after it began. It ravaged the 850-year-old building's roof and caused its spire to collapse, but firefighters who worked through the night managed to save the Paris landmark's main stone structure, including its two towers, and the cause of the fire is yet to be made clear. And Paris public prosecutor Remy Hertz said his office was favoring the theory of an accident. He assigned 50 people to work on what he described as something that is going to be a long and complicated investigation. Coming up next, Talking Point. Thanks, ladies and gentlemen, for joining us in Talking Point. Cyber attacks are growing in prominence every day around the world, and from going from influencing major elections to crippling businesses overnight. And the role cyber warfare plays in our daily lives cannot be underestimated. We're going to be talking about this in the second part of this edition of the Primetime News, and we are receiving an expert in cyber criminality. Christian Yota Chumi is coming all the way from London. You're welcome.
Good evening, sir. Thank you for having me.
Right. We're talking about cyber criminality, which is fast growing in prominence around the world and becoming a major threat.
Yes. I think this is something that came about with technology. Technology is evolving. People are learning to use the tool to the full potential. And criminals now are using the tool not to the benefit of employer, of common people, but to commit crime. And cybercrime involves any criminal activity where computers or any internet-enabled devices are used either to commit the crime or to tag as a target.
And I read something, a billionaire investor, Warren Buffett, who claims that cyber threats are the biggest threat to mankind today, and that they are bigger than threats from even nuclear weapons.
It's a major, cyber, people don't realize how big the threat is. Cybersecurity, for example, is not well taught in the context of Africa. When you look at Europe and the world, for example, we're now moving to a step where we're talking about the new GDPR, the General Data Protection Regulations, where data is power. And how do people collect data to commit crime? They collect data and they commit crime. And how do people collect data? We have all those applications, Facebook, WhatsApp, and when you use those applications, you're actually selling your data to a third-party company. And those companies, when they receive your data, they have a data storage. You just need somebody who knows how to use the tool to collect those data. And how do they do that? It's very simple. There are various technology here. There are a lot of applications that are being used at the moment to hack into data.
What are some of the major forms in which cyber criminality is manifesting? I read something about personal cyber information hacked, identity theft, and so on.
Yeah, in the most practical way, for example, for the common people who are actually sitting on the street, you have a mobile phone?
Yes, I do, of course.
Okay, if you do have a mobile phone, you might probably have a Facebook account.
Yes.
You don't know that all your data are in your Facebook account. And what happened, because the world has become a network of interconnected devices, all your data are linked together. A hacker just needs to access your Facebook account, and he will get you off your PIN number, which is your bank code. He will get use of your postcode. He will take your address, and all this he can use then to commit crime and access your bank account, access your financial information. And what is more common in Africa here are the money transfer, for example. It's a massive business, and this is where criminals sit and target third world country because they don't have enough security in place to protect the data. Cybersecurity is not taught. When you look at the context here in Africa and the context in Europe, where cybersecurity is now taught as a subject in the curriculum. So the technology is actually driven by education. Every time that a tool is discovered, we have to find a way to scale people in order to use the tool to the benefit of the country.
But since it's not taught, that simply means that many of the persons who are either managing businesses or simple people who are just using the internet and so on are not prepared to handle crimes that are being committed on the cyber against them, on the internet against them.
They are not prepared, and they don't even know that crime are being committed. I was talking to someone a few days back when he was looking at his account. He said, well, I went to the bank, I couldn't see the money in my account. Well, out of curiosity, I said, well, how do you normally check your account? Oh, well, I have everything on my mobile phone. I said, well, that's the first place. How could you keep all your data? Is your mobile phone secure? How do you protect your mobile phone? And now, because they don't know, the government has to step in to train people and scale young out there about cyber criminality and cyber security. The curriculum has to be adjusted to fit in to this technology.
And there are millions and even billions and even trillions of francs CFA that are lost as a result of crimes that are committed on the internet.
Yes. Well, if you take the example of, I was reading a report, for example, in Ivory Coast. People might not be aware of what happened a few years back in Africa, where the money transfer, the mail money transfer website was hacked into, and billions were lost. In Africa now, very few people have in place regulation and skill set to deal with cybersecurity threats. When you look at currency, cryptocurrency, for example, cryptocurrency is the new way, it's a new fashion. Everything is moving into digital. The economy is moving to digital. I don't need to come and see you now to give you money. I just need to call you or log onto my laptop or my digital device to access my information. So when I access my information, what do I know about those information? How do I know that anybody else does not have access to those information? Is the government putting in place structure that will educate common citizens about data breach, data protection? Are there any data protection regulation in place in the country? That's the question. If I ask you, for example, do you know anything about data protection, data regulation? What is in place? How do we protect our data? Is there any data manager? Is there any structure in place to use the data and protect the data?
And because of the absence of that protection, there is a significant number of documents that are leaked on the internet. For example, in 2019 alone, that this year, January 2019 alone, 1.76 billion records were leaked on the internet.
Yes. Well, it comes down, it boils down to the fact that these people are not aware. The education, something has to be, the government has to put in place a structure where people are trained and skilled about data security and data criminality, cyber criminality. We don't know what it is and how those data are being leaked. Now, there are very hypothetical scenario where I can think of how can data be leaked. You know, people, for example, they log into their computer, they don't protect their password. You have an institution, for example, where there's no data regulation protection in place. There's no system in place as data regulation. This is what we'll do if I was called in, for example, to look at how data are being leaked into an institution. I will not shoot the communicator. No. I will make a critical analysis of the data. How are data being handled? Is there a system or a team in place that look at the data and filter the data? How are people accessing data inside the company? Do they use their personal email address? Do they use their personal mobile devices? Which is wrong. There is no a set of policy in place to address these issues.
Now, in a personal perspective, what is the risk involved in putting all your information or information about you, your date of birth, where you stay, and all other informations about your name and everything on Facebook, for example?
Well, people need to be aware that Facebook is a public arena. Your private information, once you put them out there, people or criminals are sitting in the back there ready to grab your information. Number one. Number two, Facebook should be used as a communication tool, yes, but how do you protect your data when you're using the tool? On another level, when you're looking at the way data are being handled, because it's about how data are being handled. What do they do with those data when they collect those data? Some people, they sell the data to other companies. They sell data to hackers because there are hackers out there who are sitting there and they are ready to buy those data to have access to those financial information. That would put the whole country at risk. When you look at the military, for example, data in the military are precious.
Information from the presidency finds itself on the internet, on social networks.
These are precious. These are very, 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 very dangerous situation where we need to ask ourselves how are data being handled? Who is the data manager in that institution? This is what I would ask the question. That's the question I would ask if I was called in. Who is the data manager? How are information being transmitted from one end to the other end? Who holds the key to those data? Who allows people to use the data? Are data encrypted when they are transmitted? Because at the end of the day, it's not about not sharing information, but how do we share those information?
The sharing should be done.
Should be done privately.
Protection.
It should be protected. It should be encrypted. Data should be encrypted. A server needs to be in place to protect and filter data that are going on. People should not be allowed to use their private and their personal email in institutions such as the one you've just mentioned.
All right. Thanks so much, Christian Yota Chumi. You're an expert in cyber criminality. Thanks for coming to us all the way from London.
Thank you very much, sir. And thanks for watching.
Ladies and gentlemen, for staying with us. That's it for today.